Education 1030 students. I hope everyone had a great week last week. So last week we completed Unit 2 with our Unit 2 exam, and you also submitted your second Exploring the Field video reflection. So now we are moving into Unit 3. So Unit 3 is going to cover chapters 9, 10, 11, and 2. If you remember correctly, we completed chapter 12 in the first unit. So we're going to complete Unit 3 with Chapter 2. But let's go ahead and look specifically at what we're concentrating on this week. So this week is really important because we are opening Unit 3 with how do we collect, evaluate, and use information. This is also known as information literacy. This is an important piece because as a college student, as a learner, it's important for you to be able to acquire this skill, right? How do you find information? How do you interpret it? How do you evaluate it? What do you do with the information when you find it? So your textbook on page 199 really starts getting into what information literacy is and how this helps you make good choices. So make sure that you read chapter 9. There is a lot of information in this textbook about helping you with researching, because researching really is that first piece, right? When we're trying to collect the information, but where do we even start, right? Where do we go? In this chapter, you're also going to have some wonderful resources, one of them being the virtual library module. So you're going to have a virtual library tour. So it's a module that we created where you're going to go through the library. It's going to talk to you about what kind of useful information they have, what kind of resources, how it can help you, and how to use it. And then you will have a chance to take a library module quiz, which can earn you up to 5 bonus points. So I would definitely take advantage of that. So there's a lot of great resources in this chapter. So obviously, you're going to read chapter 9. We do have the slides there for you as always, but I do want you to I encourage you to complete those reading organizers because they're really a great way for you to study, right? It's a tool. So you could use it for studying for quizzes or when you take the Unit 3 exam. It is not graded, but you can earn bonus points on the exam for that. So what are some other resources aside from your textbook and the library module tour? Is going to be these videos. So there's 2 of them here that I have. One is specifically defining what information literacy is. Now, I always tell you that these videos or these links are really an additional resource for you, right? It's a supplemental resource because it's going to connect to what we're doing in our textbook, but it's going to give you deeper connection, meaning that you can go a step further on this topic. So the first one is what is information literacy? And how it adds value. The second video is about evaluating resources. You are going to see a little bit of that in the library module that we have there for you. But also, when we're talking about evaluating sources, it starts on page 206 in your textbook. So this is important because when we finally find the information that we think we want to use, we have to evaluate, is this a good resource, right? Is it credible? Does it have authority? Is it biased? There's a lot of different things that we have to consider. Is it relevant? So this video is going to take you a step further than the section in your textbook 9.4. So just make sure that you're looking at that and reading that section. Now, I explained to you that you did have a library tour and module quiz. That module quiz is an opportunity for 5 bonus points. But I wanted to kind of open it up and let you see what it looks like. So when you click on the library tour and library module quiz, it's going to come to this page. And you're going to have to click on the link. And I always suggest opening it in a new tab. But when you click on it, this is what you're going to see. Now, when you go through modules, they're set up kind of in tabs, if you will. So just like when we navigate Water State homepage, you have the tabs at the top. It's going to be the same format with this library module. So to navigate through the module, you're going to click on the tabs at the top. Okay, so you're going to see different sections. The first tab you come to is an introduction. It will show you a picture. You may remember this name or it may seem familiar to you. She is actually a research coach or a librarian that's embedded in our course, and her name is Crystal Johnson. So she's really going to be able to support you if you have further questions. If you are doing a research paper or a research project, she is a wonderful resource. So make sure that you reach out to her. The second one is talking about the resources or services, right? So say you're doing a topic in your fundamentals of communication course for speech, and you need help navigating the database system to find credible sources for research. So that's one of the services that they'll be able to help you with. They can help you, coach you on that, how to use the database, can you find journals and magazines and references, you can check out equipment. So there's lots of different services the library offers. The next one is a frequently asked questions, which, believe it or not, is a really good tool. And then research basics. So again, getting into that part that we were talking about in our text, where we're looking at information literacy and how it's an important skill for you to acquire. So when you're at the beginning of your research, it's important for you to plan. So it can be overwhelming, especially if your instructor is saying, cite using APA or MLA style, and you have no idea what that means, right? And that you have to use credible sources, and you need to come up with a topic, or we want you to create a thesis. And there's a lot of things that go into a research project. So they give you some example timelines of how you would plan this out, the different components you need when you're doing a research project. There's also some available resources, such as the writing lab, the research coaches at the library, which I talked about, and then you have tutoring. So there is help out there if you need it. And then this next one, again, I just want to premise, this is just a basic introduction to the database. There's a lot to it, but that's why we said we embedded the research coach into our course so she can help you. But we have to think beyond Google searches when we're talking about research, right? So this section is really just going to give you an introduction of what we mean by using the database in the library. And then lastly, it talks about the OneDrive, which is a platform like a cloud, if you will, where you save your work. So that is also useful in that regard. So that will allow you to have extra points. Even if you don't want to take the quiz, I do encourage you to go through the library tour module, because I feel like it is useful, helpful information, and it connects to what we're learning in Chapter 9. So please check that out. You do have your Chapter 9 quiz. I do want to note that the module quiz for the library and our Chapter 9 will both end on Thursday, April the 10th. So just keep that in mind. They'll close during that time. And then also on April 10th, you will have your assignment due that you will put into Dropbox. And this one is what we're going to call your case study. So I'm going to pull this up and we're going to talk about it a little bit and what you have to do. Now, one thing I want to start out saying is that whenever you're doing a case study, it's important for you to use text-based or research responses, right? So you're using research to get those responses. It's not going to be what you think. I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm asking for facts, something relevant. So you're going to use a resource when you're working with case study. That's why you read your Chapter 9 before you work on this piece. Now, you can use an additional resource outside of your textbook. The textbook is a wonderful resource. That's why you'll notice I put in here provide textbook-based responses. But if you find another resource as well, I think that'd be helpful for you to include that information. So with a case study, it's based off of a person. Now, sometimes you use pseudonyms. The name has been changed, but the information is a real case study. So for this one, it's about a student who's taken a college success course like you are. And the premise behind this case study is she's supposed to present a 10-minute PowerPoint on a research topic. Now, she was given 3 weeks of time to prepare and to get this ready to present. So as you might imagine, things came up. She had things going on. I'm not going to read it to you because you can read it on your own, but time management was an issue, I guess, and she didn't get it done, and she threw it together at last minute. So with this case study, there are some discussion questions that I want you to really think about and then refer back to your textbook or another resource when answering these discussion questions. And one thing to remember with a discussion question when we're talking about case studies, it's not a one-sentence answer. We really want you to think about, elaborate, and really find information to support what you're writing. So the first question is, what should she have done differently when developing the plan for her paper? So the first question you need to ask yourself is, in the textbook, where does it talk about where I'm preparing to plan for my paper? How do I develop a plan for that? So that's where you would need to go back to your textbook and look in there where it talks about developing a plan, whether you are doing research or a paper, how do I organize my thoughts, all those things you would be looking for. And then after you write down what she should have done differently, and I don't want your opinion about what you thought you would have done or she should have done, it needs to come from the textbook. And then elaborate why, and that would be your evidence coming from the textbook, which is supporting your answer. The second one is, what resources should Jane have used when researching her topic? Again, in our textbook, it talks about researching topics, right? What resources can you use? Well, in the library module, we say databases is a wonderful resource, right? So when we're talking about sources, right, resources, you know, magazines, newspapers, scholarly articles, journals, books, all of those are considered resources when you're researching for any topic. Okay, so look in your book where it talks about common research resources. And most people would be inclined to put just Google, but remember, we're thinking beyond Google, right? So use your textbook, tell me about the resources that the book tells you about, or if you find any in another source, that's fine. But why are these good? Why should she use these when she's researching a certain topic? Now, the third question, did Jane follow the steps to good writing? Now, in your textbook, it talks about actually writing and preparing for writing. There's an actual process you use. So if anyone has ever taken like an English composition class or writing class, then you know there's steps to good writing. So our textbook talks about that. So I want you to go in the textbook. I want you to find that information. That's why I say read the textbook first, chapter 9, before you start working on this assignment. And how can you tell if she did or did not use good steps for writing? And then lastly, what strategies would you suggest to help Jane work through her fear of public speaking and deliver an effective presentation? Now remember, when you're doing research, it could be for different things. It could be for a paper, it could be for a presentation. There's lots of different reasons. Maybe you're going to present for your work. So there's lots of reasons and different ways you would present the information, either through your writing or through a public speaking piece. So hers was a presentation, a public speaking piece, which she has fear of. Your textbook talks about this starting on page 214. So make sure that you look through that section because I feel like this would help you when you're answering this specific discussion question. One thing to know is when you are using text-based responses, meaning that you actually have to pull information, you are finding evidence from the textbook, and that's what I'm looking for. So you will submit this to Dropbox. Remember, the quiz, your Chapter 9 quiz, the Chapter 9 assignment, which is this case study, as well as the library module closes on Thursday, November the 10th. At 11:30. All right, I hope everyone has a great week, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I hope that you enjoy this beautiful weather. I will see you next time.